Come on, come on, come on. Oh my God, you're not exactly a lap dog, are you? Come here. Okay, cuddle up. Hey, hello internet. So anyways, I feel like I owe you a video, so I just started recording this and the dog showed up. But anyways, believe it or not, I still have some video from last year, from 2021. So we're gonna get through that, and that's the last of that, I believe. And what? Come on, here, aren't you a lap dog? So it's kind of cool because it's like it just talks about you know, it's like it's all about you. Your railroad, your model railroad is all about you. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Got this kind of crazy train idea, and I'm gonna show you that. It's like, I don't know if this is even legal. Can you do this? Of course I can, because it's all about me. It's all about my railroad. And anyways, that's that. So I'm just gonna stop blabbing. Let's get on with this last bit of video from last year. But that's okay. There's some trains running. We got trains running in this, and several updates on different areas. So anyways, let's just get on with this. All right. So, something I really like about our train layout here, there's a lot of options to do things. Let me explain here. Show you a couple things. So, this is the narrow gauge section of our train layout. It's based off the Colorado Southern or Denver South Park Pacific, depending on the time frame. So what I mean by options to do things, I mean that like in modeling different stuff and things. So with the narrow gauge, this is like based off of like a real place and a real time frame. So this is Como, Colorado. You can go to Como, Colorado. There's a real place there. The Kenosha Pass or Kenosha Great, the Palisades back there. So this is neat because it gives you an opportunity to recreate a real place and do the research and look into the history and learn some stuff about it, and you know, like find old photographs and stuff of what the hotels and buildings and all that stuff looked like. So it's neat to try to recreate that type of thing and have the opportunity and a space to do that in. So that's kind of nice. So this is, you know, I don't know, 1890s to early 1900s time frame. Yeah, so, but over here now, let me show you. Alright, so this section of the layout, the standard gauge, is, well, it's not really tied to a specific place. I generally kind of say it's loosely based off like Southern California area. But we're not modeling any specific towns or anything like that. So it's more freelance, kind of whatever we want to do. There is some stuff on here that other people have modeled in the past, like the cement plant, that I think may have actually been modeled after a real place. But again, we're not like trying to recreate a specific area, specific time. And we kind of decided it's kind of 1950s area, but hey, we run new modern stuff on it too, because why not? So anyways, this is just more freelance. We just kind of do whatever we want. And it just, yeah, gives you more freedom to whatever. So as long as it, you know, kind of looks plausible, it's like, all right, that's fine. So there's that. And then let me bring you to another area that kind of fits in with all this. Okay, so that brings us to this area. This is the intermodal area. And there are parts of the layout that are dual gauge, which that's plausible, that's fine. And we have dual gauge in here. So in here though, this is just, we'll just call it a timeline train wreck. And I don't really care. So it's not prototypical as much as anything else is because, yeah, maybe 1950s kind of intermodal, but also maybe more current type of stuff. These are, more current cars. So we run those in here. So, the 2000s, right? And then we have like narrow gauge in here with the steam locomotives. So now we're going back to the early 1900s. So this is just a big span of time that happens, and I'm okay with that because operationally it gives me a lot more options, and I mean because I want to be able to transfer stuff from standard gauge to narrow gauge, and so basically you're kind of transferring stuff from the early 1900s to the 2000s. So on this platform, it's like a time differential between trains. So I get that that's like totally not plausible, but it works so well here. So I'm just going with it. We're going with it. So we've got the narrow gauge deck. I've got narrow gauge facilities here to service the steam locomotives, and then right over here is like modern day like intermodal yard stuff. We got to get these containers unloaded and get the ships out of the water. Anyways, so it's just kind of fun. It works well. It worked out. I like it. So that brings me to my little case I brought. Let me show you something over here a little closer. So it was in our original track plan to have this area where you can drop off cattle with the standard gauge and the narrow gauge. You could transfer cows back and forth here. And again, original track plan, you have both these tracks running through the wall into that intermodal yard area. We're just on the other side. And just had this short little run around, and that was all great. But then later on we decided, you know what, if we put a turnout here, put another hole in the wall, because why not, we could get a much longer run around for this standard gauge. And then we thought, well, I've got the dual gauge turnout already, so let's just lay down a dual gauge track. So that way we can park some narrow gauge cars on there. But let me show you the other side. Okay, so back on the intermodal side. So this is the new track that we added, and it's dual gauge. And we already had this as dual gauge, and this was the main track that narrow gauge would use to get into all these facilities. And so like I said, we added that extra hole. We ran dual gauge to here. It's like, cool, we have extra storage. There's a narrow gauge train there. But then we got to looking at it. It's like, wow. It's like, I mean, it's dual gauge here, dual gauge here. It's like, if we just change these two turnouts, well, then you could have a really big runaround for the narrow gauge or the standard gauge. So I've just been putting this off for months and months. And so finally, a week or so ago, I rebuilt one of these turnouts. This is a dual gauge turnout. Standard gauge goes to the left, dual gauge goes straight. So that's gonna go there. Just operationally, this will be so much better if we can have a longer run around in here. So, this turnout. I brought with me a blanket and some glasses. This is a very fluffy, soft blanket. Anyways. These are my two locomotives I kind of bring back and forth between my house and my dad's house. Track gauges. My cool new locomotive that I really like. But here, I finally got around to making the other turnout to finish off that runaround in the intermodal yard. So the reason I've been like putting this off so long is because I have a fast track jig to build dual gauge turnouts. You can also build standard gauge or narrow gauge or any combination thereof. So that's great. I don't have a jig for this particular type of turnout. So I've been using the jig I have to get as much as I can built, and then I have to kind of manually pull it out of the jig, and I have to manually start soldering stuff on without the jig and just use the track gauges a bunch. So it's a lot more work. So that's why I've been putting it off. But I have it now. And, that's what I'm going to try and do tonight. I'm going to try and get those two turnouts in place. so that we can have a full runaround dual gauge or narrow gauge in the intermodal yard 1890s to 2000 era section of the layout. All right. Okay, so I had built this one where the narrow gauge automatically goes to the left, standard gauge goes to the right, no moving parts. It's been working fine. I thought about trying to modify this into what I needed to be dual gauge straight, but it was going to be too complicated. So I just built a whole new one. So this guy is going to go here. And well, it looks like that should fit pretty good. I have to tweak things a little bit, but that will go there. And then we'll have a full dual gauge runaround. This will be dual gauge there. And we don't need standard gauge for that, for this one side, and narrow gauge only needed on that side. So this should work well. If we spin around this way, this is the end of the runaround, so it's fine. It's complete. But it would be nice to have the dual gauge also go all the way through to the end out here, and it doesn't right now. I just ran this rail into here so we can get as much narrow gauge as we can. So this turnout, I think I decided that I can kind of probably modify this one in place here. I don't know when I'll get to doing that. It just gives us an extra 2.5 feet of narrow gauge at the end of the runaround. Not a big deal, but it'd be nice someday. So I don't know when I'll get to that one. But at least if I get that stuff down there done, we can start doing some scenery and whatnot. So, and also, my dad, he's been busy doing stuff also.
Sure.
So let's go see what he's done. I haven't even really seen it myself, but let's go take a look on the standard gauge layout. All right. So on the standard gauge layout, we had somewhat recently got the staging yard put in place, as depicted by the cool blue light. Well, at the end of that staging yard, there was a big reverse loop, and we've got that working now. This little area right down here is part of that reverse loop. So I think that makes this officially a double-decker layout, since it has scenery there and it's two different levels. This is that staging yard, and this turnout right here is the beginning of that reverse loop. So we actually have that reverse loop working. And Dad's put some sides on here to help protect the train from falling on the floor if it comes off the track. And there's actually a couple, well, 3 tracks in here, a little bit of extra stuff for the yard. So my dad got tortoises put in place for those, and he got switches put in place to run those tortoises. This little on-off thing that will flip the reverse loop turnout if you want to. And actually right down here is the PSX AR board that we're using for that reverse loop. And it actually works quite well. We ran trains the other night, and I just ran something right through there, and it came right back out with no problems. So Dad's been busy too. So speaking of the intermodal yard area being like this big time frame, time disaster, I did something kind of funny the other day when we were running trains, and I'm just gonna show you this. I shot it with my phone like a week ago. I don't care what you say, it works. I think it's funny. So here, check this out. All right, a little bit of an update. So I got this first turnout in. It was already like a fast tracks turnout that was there, so the ties were already there. It said the remove 1, I was able to kind of drop that one in place, so that worked out well. The second one over here was just a store-bought turnout, so I had to lay ties for that, and I got to let that dry. I'm also hand laying a little track in between the turnouts, just because the turnouts are code 83, and I have no code 83 store-bought dual gauge track. In fact, I don't even know if they make it, but because this is code 70 here. So I brought some code 83 rail, and it's like, well, I'll just hand lay that little bit. Well, Jim is here. This is a Bachmann steam locomotive. The pilot truck on this locomotive does not like to stay on the track. So we're running it around a layout to kind of figure out where it comes off. We've got a couple ideas of how to maybe fix it. So we do actually work on locomotives and stuff like that too. Well, really, it's like Jim that does most of the work on locomotives and cars, just because he's so good at it. So, this is the entrance to the staging yard, and you see there's a track there that goes to nowhere. Well, that actually goes to another section of freight yard that we don't have put in yet. And my dad is putting tortoises on, replacing these old switch machines, so we can get this last section put up. Alright, just show you real quick. With that steam locomotive, the drivers were kind of coming off right here, so just added this little guardrail. Because either the driver was hitting this point, or it was riding up on this. Either way, this little guardrail fixed that. Jim's still going to take that home and do some other stuff to the locomotive though. So my ties are dry. I got the rails cut for that little section between the two turnouts. Got the first turnout in place, and I got to actually solder these rail joiners, different rail sizes there. So none of that is spiked down, but it's very close. This is good. If I switch this turnout down here, it shorts out. I don't know. I got a lot of bits of lots of little bits of rail laying around, so could be that. We'll sort it out later. It's getting late now, so that's where we're at with that. Oh, let's go check out those tortoises Dad was working on. He's got one of them in place, so that's a start. That's good. All right, so kind of random things in this video. It'll be cool to have that full big run around working in the intermodal yard, so getting close to getting that going. Did some work on the locomotive stuff. Dad's got the tortoise stuff going on for that last piece of that lower yard. Yeah, so I guess that's that. And that's it. That's the end of the video, I guess. So, hit the thumbs up button, all that stuff and things. We'll catch you later. Thanks for watching. See ya. Oh! Oh.